The forest held its breath as Clara ventured deeper. Each step was hesitant, her boots crunching on the frost-covered leaves. The air grew colder, the darkness more oppressive. Clara pulled her coat tighter, her heart pounding against the silence. The trees loomed above her, their skeletal branches intertwining like grasping claws. She felt a prickle of unease, a sense of being watched. Milo, her loyal Labrador, whined softly, pressing against her leg. He usually loved their walks, bounding ahead with joyful abandon. But tonight he stayed close, his head low, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Clara tried to reassure him, her voice thin in the still air. "It's all right, boy, we're just taking a walk," she whispered, her words swallowed by the heavy silence. As darkness deepened, the forest seemed to press closer. The shadows stretched and twisted, taking on menacing form. The wind rustled the leaves, whispering secrets Clara couldn't understand. She felt a growing sense of dread, a feeling that something was terribly wrong. The forest had always been her sanctuary, a place of peace and solitude. Tonight, it felt like a predator waiting to strike. Clara quickened her pace, her eyes darting nervously around. She just wanted to get home, to the safety of her warm house. But the forest had other plans. It seemed to close in, the path ahead disappearing into the gloom. Clara stumbled, her breath catching in her throat. Panic welled up inside her, threatening to overwhelm her. Clara called out for Milo, her voice trembling. He wasn't by her side. "Milo!" she called again, her voice louder, sharper. Silence met her ears, a silence broken only by the pounding of her own heart. She spun around, searching the darkness, her fear growing with every passing second. She caught a flicker of movement in the shadows, a pair of eyes gleaming with an eerie light. "Milo?" she whispered, her voice filled with hope and trepidation. But the creature that emerged from the darkness was not her beloved dog. It was larger, its fur matted and caked with mud, its eyes glowing with an unnatural intensity. Clara gasped, taking an instinctive step back. This thing, this creature, looked like Milo, but something about it was different, wrong. The creature let out a low growl, a sound that sent shivers down Clara's spine. It circled her, its movements predatory, its eyes never leaving her. Clara stood frozen, her mind unable to comprehend what she was seeing. This couldn't be Milo, her sweet, gentle Milo. But if it wasn't Milo, then what was it? Fear, raw and primal, surged through Clara. She stumbled back, her foot catching on a root. She fell, landing hard on the cold, unforgiving ground. The creature lunged, its jaws snapping shut just inches from her face. Clara screamed, the sound echoing through the silent forest. Scrambling back, Clara found herself at the edge of a clearing. In the center, bathed in the pale moonlight, was an old well. Its stone rim was crumbling, covered in moss and lichen. A thick, rusted chain hung limply from a rotting wooden post. But it was the sound that sent chills down Clara's spine. A low, mournful groan seemed to emanate from the depths of the well, a sound filled with an ancient sorrow. Clara couldn't tear her gaze away from the well. It was as if it was calling to her, drawing her in with its eerie song. She took a hesitant step closer, then another, her fear battling with a strange, morbid curiosity. As she got closer, the groaning grew louder, resonating in her chest, vibrating through her bones. It was a sound that spoke of darkness and despair, a sound that seemed to seep into her very soul. Clara reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing against the cold, damp stone. The groaning intensified, and a voice, raspy and weak, whispered from the depths. "Feed me," it rasped, the words echoing in the stillness of the night. "Feed me what you hold dear." Clara stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. She turned to run, to flee from this cursed place, but her legs wouldn't obey. She was rooted to the spot, her gaze locked on the well. The A voice called to her again, its tone more insistent, more demanding. "Feed me!" it hissed, its voice slithering around her like a serpent. "Feed me your fear!" Something wet and warm brushed against Clara's hand. She looked down to see Milo, his tail wagging tentatively. He looked up at her, his eyes no longer glowing, but filled with his usual warmth and devotion. Relief flooded through Clara, washing away the terror that had gripped her. She wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We're okay." As she stood, Clara realized something was different. The forest no longer seemed menacing, the shadows no longer held their former terror. The air felt lighter, the oppressive silence replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves. Even the well, though still eerie in the moonlight, no longer seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. It was as if the forest itself had exhaled, releasing its hold on her. But the change in Clara was more profound. A strange sense of peace settled over her, a calmness she had never known before. She looked at Milo, truly looked at him, and saw not her beloved pet, but something more. She saw a creature of the wild, a being of instinct and power, and she saw a reflection of that power within herself. As she turned to leave the forest, her steps were no longer hesitant, but sure and steady. The darkness held no fear for her, the unknown no longer a source of dread. She had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back. And in that exchange, something within her had shifted, irrevocably changed. Clara was no longer the same. The forest had claimed a part of her, leaving in its place something ancient and wild.